moon.
Hello there, I'm Tom from That's No Moon, and in today's battle report I take on my friend and yours, all muscle, no liver, Lee Macken from Crafty Terrain. If you've not watched the first game in this head-to-head, head over to Crafty Terrain's YouTube page and check out how we got on. I'll wait. Okay, well now you know that he won our first leg. This time we decide to play some off-meta lists. So I decide to crack out some of my favourite units that never get to see play, the swoop bikes. This week we're playing in Lee's home and his terrain is absolutely incredible. He's got some amazing tables, so if you don't already, I'd recommend giving his channel a subscribe. And while we're talking about subscribing, if you don't do ours, hit that button now. So I play More Pikes Bikes. It's 794 points, it's 2 capos with no upgrades, Maul with burst of speed, force push, into the fray, vigilance and the dark saber, 4 pikes with disruptor rifles and 3 swoop bikes with comms jammers. And Lee's list comes in at 797 points, it's 3 destroyer droids, 5 B1s with E5Cs, he's got 2 just with the heavy, 1 with a med droid, 1 with an uplink and 1 with a PK droid. And then he's got a full BX commando squad with a sniper rifle, O-push and the shield. Turn 0 comes down and we end up on rollout, breakthrough and clear conditions. I'm pretty happy with this flop as I plan on sending my bikes off and I deploy the majority of my list in the extended part of the deployment. With reinforcements, my swoop bikes wait until last, and I add them just to the outside of the deployment and leave them behind some line of sight blocking terrain to avoid the bombardment card as an early play. Lee deploys how you would imagine a seasoned CIS player would, in a massive ball of B1s and General Grievous, and then he uses his Rolly Boys as mobile cover and a wall of line of sight blocking terrain. Start how I always start when I play Maul, with the Phantom Menace. Maul's 2-pip, it means that he can't be attacked unless you're within range 2. Lee opts for push. With cunning, I win the priority roll, and Maul and a capo get the orders. Lee orders his B1s and the whole chain gets an order, and then 1 to the BX, and then he orders Grievous, leaving the 3 destroyers in the bag. Lee dishes out some surges from aggressive tactics. He gives 1 to Big G, some to BX, and some to a B1 squad. My whole list, bar Maul and the capo with the order, take a dodge from Independent. I go to my bag and I pull a support. I activate a swoop bike who triple moves towards Lee's deployment zone. If I can make it so that he has to come to me, instead of moving towards my deployment zone, I should be able to split his forces, making it easier to stop him from scoring. Lee realises he's cut himself off from moving forward with his destroyer droids, so some B1s move through a small gap and he double moves towards the temple ruins on the table edge. Pulling a support, I activate my next squad of swoop bikes, and they move alongside the first. And at this point, we have some slight camera issues from my slightly ghetto camera setup, and the record cut out, but luckily I noticed and we only missed a single activation. Good news though, it was just Lee moving up some destroyer droids to the temple ruins at the top of the screen. I activate a pike squad and I move to just range 4 of that squad and I take a shot. I roll 3 natty crits and Lee has to spend 3 shields. If this is how this game's going, I'm pretty stoked. Lee, having perfect order control, now moves some B1s to the temple ruins in the middle, where the destroyer droids were. I then go to my bag and I pull a capo. I don't rally the suppression I have from the from aiding my independent to a pike squad, and then I take an aim and I aid that to the same pike squad. I then recover to get rid of all of my suppression. Lee now decides to activate another destroyer droid, who moves and dodges. Lee has taken his time before he moves into the dangerous range 3 bubble, and then he can make some serious damage at that distance. I activate my second capo. I move, and again I aid the same pike squad and aim. Lee activates another B1, who move with the rest of the B1 ball. Saving Maul for later, I pull a core. I'm in range 4 of the destroyer droids that have only got 1 shield left. I take an aim, which gives me 3 aims from the 2 aided ones from the capos, and I shoot the disruptor. I miss with the red and a black all 3 times. Lee's final destroyer droid moves into the same position as the other 3 and takes a dodge. You might notice at this point that Lee moves a couple of B1s that he left behind. It's pretty hard to track that big ball when they're clumped up. I then aim and shoot with another disruptor into a destroyer, again for nothing. Again, Lee moves some B1s up to the ball. Getting another core token out of the bag, I move and I take a dodge. I don't want these guys to move on top of the T-70 at the bottom of the board. There'll be a sitting duck in front of Lee's BX droids, so I decide to move them and dodge and wait until a little bit later to move them up. Lee activates General Grievous and wants to make sure he stays out of line of sight blocking terrain, so he moves GG to the ball. I activate Maul, I dodge and I double move behind some line of sight blocking terrain. With Vigilance, I should have this dodge for the whole game. Lee's final B1s move up. As they've got a med droid, they want to stay next to General Grievous. My final activation is my third swoop bike, who double moves and dodges. This leaves him with 2 dodges and out of line of sight of the BX droids. Lee's final activation at turn 1 is his BX droids. They move on top of a wall with scale, and with O push, this gives them an aim. They then take a shot at one of my swoop bikes that they can see. With 8 white and 2 red dice, and a pretty good roll, he gets 6 hits. Comes down to 5 with cover, I spend a dodge to make it 4, and then I take all 4 wounds. For turn 2, I play Maul's 3 pip, seize what power we can. To Lee's 1 pip, assault. I order Maul and both capos, and Lee issues out a single order which goes to his BX. He then pops the uplink on the B1 chain, and he hands out his aggressive tactics while I give everything a dodge. Now that Lee has the priority, he activates the BX and he takes a shot at the swoop bike that's got some smoke coming out the back of it. And this time he completely whiffs, and then he takes a dodge as his second action. I now activate some pikes, who aim and shoot at Lee's BX droids. I spend a surge to get 3 hits, and Lee spends a dodge token. Lee activates some B1s who climb up and back down the middle piece of terrain. I pull a swoop bike, and I triple move the wounded swoop out of the danger zone, and I'm now threatening a victory point. Lee activates a Rolly Boy, and he moves up to range 3 of the pike squad that's activated and takes a shot. With 2 to defend, after dodge and cover I lose 2 minis. I now activate a capo who dodges and aims. With aid, I buff some pikes. The dodge goes to the ones who just took the wounds, and the aim to another squad. Lee activates more B1s who join the other ones the other side of the temple ruins. Go into my bag, I pull a core. This time I activate the squad at the bottom edge of the table, and I move towards the objective. Again, Lee activates some B1s, and he moves on top of the ruins. I pull a swoop bike, a compulsory move, shoot Lee's BX squads, and move out of line of sight of the rest of his army. With the shot I get 3 hits, 2 to cover and Lee spends a shield. This leaves him with no defensive tech. Lee pulls another destroyer droid who moves up with AI and then takes a dodge. I then activate my second capo who does the same as the first, who aids a couple of squads. Sticking with his game plan, Lee moves and dodges with some B1s. I now pull my last swoop bike. I compulsory move, a partial move and overrun on the BX. I attack with 1 red and 2 white, and I kill 2 BX. Then my second action is to move and land on a different BX droid and get a second overrun attack. 2 white and a red. This time, Lee saves them. But more importantly, I'm jamming that squad and they can't be issued an order in the next turn. Lee activates his final B1s who move and then they recover to get their HQ uplink back. Pulling a pike squad, I move and I shoot into the ball of B1s. With the aim from the command card, I've got 6 for Lee to defend, down to 5 for cover, and Lee loses 4 B1s. Activating General Grievous, Lee double moves for a better position in the next turn. Seeing the potential to get some wounds on Grievous, I aim and I shoot at him. I have access to 3 aims, and I give Lee 5 to defend after cover, and he takes 4 wounds. Lee's final activation of the round is to move up some destroyer droids, who take a shot at the pike squad that he's already attacked. I just take some suppression tokens. My final activation of the round is Maul. I'm trying to decide how aggressive to play him. If I go too aggressive, I think Lee might be able to overwhelm Maul in the next turn. And I decide to play it safe, and I don't take any actions in turn 2. For turn 3, I play Seize What Power We Can, and Lee plays Supreme Commander. I own a Maul and a Capo, and Lee orders Grievous, and then HQ uplinks the chain. Lee gives out his aggressive tactics, while again I take a dodge with everything that can take one. I go to my bag and I draw a core unit. I skip my rally step with the card effect and I shoot General Grievous. 1 after cover and Grievous takes another wound. Lee now activates Grievous, who moves and shoots with Relentless into my pikes with light cover. 1 goes through, I spend a dodge, they're fine. Lee then moves out of line of sight of my army. Activating a capo, I aim and dodge, and I aid both to a full squad of pikes. Lee now activates a squad of destroyer droids who AI move up to cover, and then they shoot some pikes that are heavily suppressed. With 1 to defend and 3 to roll from danger sense, I save them all. I go to my bag and I pull a bike. I aim and I shoot at the BX. It gives them 3 to defend and Lee spends a shield to make it 2. He then saves them both. I then compulsory move. In hindsight, I think it was a mistake to aim. Might even have been a mistake to attack. I probably should have just triple moved and been safe in his deployment zone. Lee activates the HQ uplink squad, who now shoot at my swoop bikes. I have heavy cover and 2 crits to defend, and I take a single wound. Back to the bag, I get another swoop bike squad. This time I activate the single bike, who just does handbrake turn donuts and he stays out of line of sight. Lee draws a BX now, and he has to move, dodge and move down. He then recovers to get his shield back. With my second capo rallying, I aim and I dodge and I aid them both to pikes yet to activate. Lee goes to his stack again and draws a destroyer droid. He has AI and he shoots into the squad that he's already shot. With 2 crits I roll 4 dice and again they're absolutely fine. Going to my bag I pull a core unit and I aim and shoot at the destroyers. With 3 aims I get 6 hits, down to 4, and Lee spends 3 shields and he takes a wound. Lee's final destroyers move up and they take a shot at the pikes that he's been working on. 1 hit goes to cover and I take another 2 suppression. Activating another squad of swoop bikes, I move for a better position for the next round. Lee goes with the squad with the med droid and he moves up and pulls a wound off of General Grievous, and then he shoots into my swoops that have heavy cover. He gets a single crit, this time I save it. Going back to my bag I pull a core, a double move towards his deployment zone, giving me 4 units threatening the objective. Before sending more B1s towards my deployment zone, Lee pulls a wound off of a destroyer droid with his PK. Activating a pike, I try and rally my 7 suppression. I don't rally and I panic. This is a massive mistake as my card stops me from panicking this turn and I'm a total moron. Activating a B1 squad, Lee aims and shoots at my swoop bikes. He gets 3 crits and again I take a single wound. More moves towards the approaching B1 ball. Again, this is a mistake and I've split my forces. Watching your own play back only irritates you when you realise how much you mess up. With Lee's final activation of the round, he moves towards my deployment zone. For turn 4, I think Lee is going to play Trained in Your Jedi Arts, so I play at last to guarantee that I get the priority. But to my surprise, he plays Assault. I order Maul and Lee orders a destroyer droid, General Grievous, and then the B1 chain. Lee's BXs are still in my range 1 bubble of the comms jammer, so there's no order for them. Again, he gives out some aggressive tactics, and I take an independent dodge with my entire list. With the priority, I go to my bag and I draw some swoop bikes. For some reason I decide to play really aggressively instead of playing the objective. Andy always tells me that this is a terrible idea, but I always do it anyway. So I move and I overrun Lee's B1 squad. I deal no damage and then I take a second move doing the same. Again, getting a single wound, and Lee loses a single B1. This probably loses me the squad, but if not, Lee's not going to be able to give orders to any of his B1s with my comms jammer. Lee goes with his BX. They tap offensive push and they shoot into my swoop bikes. With 2 PS1, I spend a dodge and I lose a bike. Back to the bag, I pull a capo. This time I do the same as I've done the whole game, and I aid and aim and a dodge, and I give them to some pikes. Pulling a destroyer droid, Lee moves with AI. He then takes a shot into the squad that he's been working on. 2 crits after cover. I dodge to make it 2 to save. I roll 4 dice on 2 hits and I lose 2 men. The dice are changing. Activating a Pike squad, I decide to move into Lee's deployment. Lee next rallies with some B1s and he moves again and shoots into the same Pike squad. I roll 4 to save 2 hits and this time I lose the squad. With my second capo, I again aid. I aim and I dodge and I give it to some Pikes yet to activate. With one of his most forward units of B1s that's near Maul, Lee now activates, aims and standbys. Pulling another core, I try and work out if I can shoot into General Grievous. I decide to aim and shoot into the destroyer droids at the front because I can't see him. With 3 aims, I end on 7 down to 4. With the shields, Lee takes 3 wounds. Activating some B1s, Lee shoots into my swoop bike. He gets 4 to defend, I take 2 wounds, and then he moves. I pull my next swoop bike. A compulsory move, I then aim and shoot into Lee's BX droids. With cover and shields, Lee defends it all. Lee then gets a destroyer droid, who pivots, takes a shot at the swoop bike. With heavy cover and just 1 crit, I take another wound. The final swoop bike moves deep into Lee's lines and moves out of range of the rest of his guns. Lee now shoots into that same squad of swoop bikes with a B1 for nothing. Well, he gets 5 surges, but he can't convert any of them. It was brilliant. He then moves. Going with Maul, a double move to pounce on the approaching B1s in the next turn to keep them out of my deployment zone. Watching this back now, it's obvious that training your Jedi arts is coming in the next turn and I've completely fucked this. I should move him towards the rest of the Pikes and take down General Grievous in the next turn. Lee activates Grievous and he climbs and moves towards my army. With Relentless, he takes a shot on my capo to try and stop my token generation. After cover, I have a single wound. As I thought, in turn 5, Lee plays Trained in Your Jedi Arts. I play Duel of the Fates so that I get the priority. Lee pops the uplink, I hand out my independent, he hands out his aggressive tactics. With Cunning, I have the priority. I go to my bag and I get a core. I aim and I shoot as many dice as I can into General Grievous. I get 5. After a dodge, he leaves General Grievous on 1 health. There's nothing I can do about what's about to happen. General Grievous activates. He charges into my lines of Pikes. They've already activated, so this is going to keep him safe. If they don't die anyway. Lee swings on the Pikes in melee for 4, PS2, kills 4 of the squad. Then, with the blender, he kills a single man. He kills 1 man in the second squad. He hits the capo for 1 suppression, and then he gets a hit on the other capo that I dodge. Not the most devastating of General Grievous attacks with the blender, but it's not great for me. Another slight technical issue with the video misses my swoop bikes shoot into Lee's BX, who lose a man, and then double move around the corner. Lee moves up some destroyer droids, who shoot into the Pikes by General Grievous. I roll 3 defense dice on 1 hit and I still take a wound. I go to my bag and I get my second Pikes, who move and I shoot the BX. I then move again into the building. With the attack, I get a crit which Lee saves. Lee then activates these BX, who, because they've been jammed, have an AI move. So they do that to get a shot on the swoops. With heavy cover down to light, Lee gets 2 hits. I've only got 1 HP and I lose the model. That's another bike that I should have had scoring in Lee's deployment, that instead of doing the objective, I've tried to do something that I thought was fun. Turns out, Andy was right and that was a mistake. Now pulling a capo, I aim and shoot at General Grievous. He's in the open with no cover and 1 HP left, and General Grievous dies to the capo. Now going with some more destroyer droids, Lee moves with AI and then he gets a shot. He gets 2 after cover and I lose a single man. My second capo gets a crit through on a destroyer, that guy loses a shield. Lee then moves his next destroyer droid, who double moves to be able to score in the next turn. Pulling a core, and desperate to get any points I can from Lee, I move and I shoot the disruptor into the BX, giving him 1 to defend. Again he saves. Lee now starts to move the B1s towards my deployment. I take this opportunity to pop burst of speed and I move. I throw some B1s as far backwards as possible from my deployment. I then move and I stand by into the next squad of B1s. Lee punches Maul for 7 white dice for his first action. He gets a single hit. I roll for the hit and I take it. I then spend my standby, allowing me to swing the Darksaber. I've got 4 PS2, I kill 3 B1s. And now, out of units, Lee gets to move his B1s into scoring range. With another 2 squads, Lee moves up away from Maul and tries to contest the objective. Going into the final turn of the game, I play Witch Magic to Lee's standing orders. I order Maul, and I remove 2 wounds and the immobilized token. Lee then activates the B1 chain. I go to my bag and I pull a core. I try to rally as I have 5 suppression. I need to rally 2 for a single action, and I get it. So I take a shot into the B1s for a single hit. I should have standbyed, I didn't stand by. Lee now activates this squad, who move into my deployment zone, putting us level on scoring. To the bag, I get a capo, and I double move into Lee's cohered mini that's outside of my deployment zone, being able to pull him out of my scoring zone, putting it back up to 2 to 1 on victory points. Activating some destroyer droids, Lee goes into wheel mode and just plows into the deployment zone to make it 2-2. I now activate Maul. I push the melee squad out into the open and far away from my deployment zone as possible. I then double move into Lee's B1s and I take a standby. This is to try and stop Lee being able to move anyone else into my deployment zone. This proved too little too late, as Lee now moves another destroyer droid into my deployment zone to clinch the win at 3-2. I shouldn't have gotten so greedy with my swoops, because then it would have been 4-0 on turn 2. But I got 2 bikes killed. Lessons learned. Play the objective. Don't just try and kill stuff. Until next time, may the Force be with you.
That's no moon.